Right, hello lads and lasses, and welcome back to Boys Down Under, where today we have a bit of an opinion piece. We are talking about the Sydney Super Cup for what will probably be the final and last time on this channel, and whether it was a success or a failure. But before we go any further, if you guys are enjoying the content, you know that I want you guys to support the channel, and you guys know that the very best way to support the channel is to click that like button, give it the thumbs up, click the red subscribe button. Very important you do that, and I appreciate every single one of you who do that. Ignore that. Ignore the little dude. I'm putting myself into a hole. You know what to do. Click the like button, click the subscribe button. But without further ado, let's get into it. So, look, this video is going to be me being completely honest with you guys about the cup. It feels weird to call it a cup, an exhibition cup. There was no actual trophy or cup involved, but, you know, apparently Everton won it. Anyways, we're going to look at every aspect of it and ultimately decide if it was a success or failure. Now, having been to the majority of the events on show, I do believe I'm well informed to make this judgment, but not everyone will agree with me, so I do hope that you guys do disagree with me in the comments, because I like some talking points. I like to argue points. So let me know in the comments below. But let's first look at the team's success. Pretty clear. It's a Sydney Super Cup. So 2 teams from Sydney and then 2 top European teams. It's a success, right? You know, that's the foundation. That's the model. They stuck to it and they delivered with that. You know, the team's improved after a certain team dropped out. So I'm very happy for that. Now, I can't fault the teams being used. I can't fault the schedule. You know, even with the short turnarounds, Everton and Celtic are used to midweek fixtures. You know, that's a given. And Sydney and Wanderers only play one fixture each. So that isn't an issue by no means. Now, the only thing that I would say was an issue with the schedule was the short turnaround off the flights, because evidently, Celtic were very much jet-lagged in our opening match against Sydney FC, and Everton were very jet-lagged in our match against them, and so too was Celtic, clearly jet-lagged in front of goal. Now, that really did hinder both teams' performances, but look, what can you do? You know, we live on the other side of the world. I'm not going to bitch and moan about jet-lag and whatnot, but it is obviously a factor into Celtic's performances and Everton's performances. Now, that leads me on to the results. Now, this was something out of the organisers' control. They didn't know how the teams were going to turn up. They didn't know what style of football the teams were going to play. And as for Celtic, we were disappointing. You know, Sydney FC was a shambolic performance. No, Sydney FC played well against Sydney FC. We were shambolic. But to be fair to them, they turned up heaps. They really, really did turn up. I've got mates who are Sydney FC fans. They told me it's the best they've played all season. So they showed up for the occasion. Fair play for that. Now, against Everton, we were arguably the better team. However, like usual, always in Europe and apparently outside of Scotland, we cannot score a goal to save our lives. If, you know, UEFA comes along and is like, Celtic Football Club, you need to score, or we strip your license to be a football club, we'd have our license stripped because we can't score for shit. We need new strikers, or we just need to start playing Giacomakis more, even though he is not a dead ball specialist by any means. If you get my drift. Anyways, I'm not going to lose sleep over the results or the performances. You know, that is another thing I'm going to add in here. It's disappointing. Yes, very, very disappointing. But not going to lose sleep. The only reason I bring it up is because this Celtic team is renowned for its fast-paced attacking football. You know, and yet the fact of the matter is we only scored 1 goal over the course of 2 games, and I don't get to see them live again unless I go over to Celtic. And that is obviously annoying and frustrating, but, you know, at least it's an incentive for me to go over to Scotland to see Celtic play proper football. Anyways, for the club, we've talked about the event as a whole. Now we'll come back to a different part of it. I'm leaving one significant part out. We'll return to that at the end. But let's look at it for Celtic. Now, was partaking in the Sydney Super Cup for Celtic beneficial? Was it a success? Well, financially, I can confirm Celtic secured the bag. They made a shit ton of money through that match. Good bit of dosh. And I don't know the figure or any of the specifics, but I can guarantee you they made a lot of money from this. And that's the financial point. W. Made good money. Now, the squad. Did our squad come any worse off? No, it did not. nearly, very, very, very nearly, we were going home with a lot of injuries, but we didn't, and I'm very, very thankful. Look at players like Jota, Matt O'Reilly, Rio Atate getting absolutely crunched in the Everton game, and not legally either, illegally getting crunched on the football field. They played rough, Everton. They like their bully ball. Makes up for the fact they can't play football for shit. Anyways, that's a lot of swear words. Grandma and Grandpa, I do apologise. Anyways, one player from the squad genuinely impressed me though. Rocco Vada, the wee lad himself. He has a lot of talent. Very raw talent, to say the least. Needs to be refined, but he still has a lot of talent. At 17 years old, he ain't going to be the complete package just yet. But the important part is he is developing, and I think getting those 2 games in, especially one game against Everton, he played maybe like 15, 20 minutes, but still really, really good for him. I thought he played really, really well. He tried his best to make an impact. He did make an impact in the Everton game, fair play to him. But ultimately it wasn't to be. No defining goal for him. No etching himself into Celtic folklore, whatever you want to call it. None of that. But good for the lad. The squad is fine. Celtic were winners in this situation. The results don't matter. We get the losses out of ourselves. We get the bad performances out of ourselves. We take home money. And the squad is fine. That is significant. Really, really significant. And I'm sure everyone back home, not back home, everyone's sure back at Celtic, back in Glasgow, the whole board of directors and whatnot, they will be loving it right now. But the most important part and the most integral part to the Sydney Super Cup being a success or a failure comes down to the fans. Because ultimately, this was for the fans. Let's start with the open training session. Massive, absolutely massive, and great addition to the whole Sydney Super Cup from the organisers. Free entry on an afternoon. People can go there after work. People can hit the pubs before. It's not at night time. It's still bright outside, so you can drive, public transport, all of those sorts of things. That was amazing for the fans. They had the what are they called? The bistro open at the open training session. So you had fans downing beers inside and whatnot the whole time. Canadian clubs, what have you, and that was just one of the free events. You had the JD Sports Q&A and meet and greet. You had the open party in Sydney City Square. So all of those things for free. Great additions for the players to get up, get close to the players, not in a creepy way, but to see the players in action, not just on the football pitch, but doing other activities. And not even just for Celtic fans. It wasn't just great for Celtic fans to see our team in action. There's Everton fans in Australia, Sydney FC, the Wanderers. Not only do they all get to see their teams play a bit more, they get to see, especially for Sydney FC and the Wanderers, they get to see their teams in action against some top European teams. While normally they're playing week in, week out against teams with the likes of, Adelaide United and Wellington Phoenix, they get to see their teams against some top players. And that's great. That's great because that's something that the A-League really lacks, is a lot of top players. And in Australia, you rarely get to see the best of the best. Now, while Celtic and Everton aren't the best of the best, it's still a step up. And I think a lot of people can agree with me on that. But there is a downside to that as well. And this is very sneaky and a bit annoying from the organisers. Ticket prices. They were, and I will admit, over the top. Now, I understand the money has to come from somewhere. They've got to make a profit. They've got to generate revenue. However, this is very sneaky from the organisers because the last time Celtic were in Sydney, or in Australia in general, 2011. The last time Everton were in Australia, God knows when. I have no bloody clue. Now, they knew every single Celtic fan in Australia, every single Everton fan in Australia, and I'd say around 50% of Sydney and Wanderers fans would happily pay any price to go see these matches. So for that reason, they've bumped the ticket prices up just that little bit. In the A-League, sure, quality a bit less than Celtic and Everton, but you can get into the A-League for $15. It's cheap as chips. This match, I believe the cheapest tickets were around $45 to $50 for Celtic and Sydney FC, and for the Celtic-Everton match, I think it was somewhere around $60. Now, not everyone in Australia is made out of money, but the organisers knew, and I reiterated again, the organisers knew that fans would pay the money to go see these players because of how rare the occasion is. And that was proven in the attendance figures. 20,000 fans for Celtic FC versus Sydney FC, and that stadium holds around 40,000. And then the Everton match, it was just over 40,000 in a stadium that holds just over 80,000. So I do strongly believe those numbers could have been increased a lot more with ticket prices getting reduced, but at the same time, the organisers knew what they were doing. So it does take a bit of a chunk out of a fan's pocket, especially if they're, in the cost of living crisis right now. But it is what it is. Now, on top of that, on top of the fact of getting more fans to come, another shitty part from the organisers, and now I'm getting a bit sidetracked here, but hear me out here, advertising. Advertising was absolutely shambolic. It was one of the worst. I don't know, there was nothing. No advertisement, the week of, sure, social media posts increase, couple radio things here and there. But before that, when it got announced and the months leading up to it, there was absolutely nothing. It was a ghost town for advertising. It was really, really, really poor. I could count. I would need more fingers than my 10 fingers to count how many people came up to me and said, "Oh, I didn't even know there was a match coming on. Oh, Celtic are in Australia. I didn't know that. That would have been good to see." It's crazy. It was literally crazy. I every single time I was open with them. I was like, "Yeah, I know. It was terrible. The advertising was terrible." But I'm not going on the tangent just now because it's over. It's done. We can't change the past. It is what it is. On ignoring that side note, was the cup good for the fans? Personally, yes. 100% yes. It was very, very good for the fans, whether it be fans making the trip from the UK, whether it be, fans in Australia getting to see Celtic for the first time ever live, or the second or third time, whether it be, people like my dad who grew up watching Celtic, going to Parkhead, but then migrating to Australia and getting to see Celtic in action again. It was great for everyone. Even neutrals, I'm sure, got a bit of a kick out of it, even though I've seen a lot of comments online saying it was pretty boring football. I'm sure they still got a bit of a kick out of it. Anyways, but that is the most important factor though, which I was talking about. The fact that it was for the fans and I enjoyed it. I know most of you enjoyed it. So overall, but not completely, the Sydney Super Cup was a success. And off to the land of Jota the boys go now. But that is all from me. So if you guys did enjoy the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, leave in the comments below your thoughts on the cup, whether you watched it from home or you attended. Let me know, and until next time, hail, hail.